Everyone. I will be presiding over the meeting this evening in the absence of Mr. Ewing, and so if I'm a little rusty at it, um, don't judge me. Okay. Anyway, I would like to call to order the OSC meeting. Can I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Mr. McBride, President Ewing, Mr. Riddle,
Present.
Ms. Gonzalez,
Here.
Ms. Fabian,
Present.
Ms. Lindsay.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum, and the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the meeting minutes from May 16th, 2023, the OSC meeting. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Approved, motion by Mr. Riddle, second by Mr. McBride. Are there any corrections, deletions, changes in the minutes? If not, I'll do a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the meetings are passed. Okay, and so the next item, all of this will be the Operations Service Committee agenda, and I would now turn it over to Mr. Moulton.
Thank you. Good evening, Ms. Hannah, board member, superintendent, staff, and community. We have several information items on the agenda for you this evening. We do have some staff members in the audience who are available to answer any specific questions you may have, including myself. So I'll just list out the items, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. The first item under information is the fiscal year 24 supplies, custodial supplies, paper products, general supplies, and PE or gym uniforms. There is information listed here. This is something that's done on an annual basis in order to secure these items for next school year.
Are there any questions with this item? If not, I do have one.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and we just got the waiver for PE. And I'm going to presume that the gym suits are for middle and high school. And so with the waiver, are we still needing to continually buy these uniforms, these PE uniforms? And again, are we overstocked with last year's uniforms? Are we lacking uniforms? And I'm only asking because, like you say, this is a reoccurring item. And so I'm looking to get some kind of brief explanation.
Thank you for the question, Ms. Hannah. So we do have some inventory of uniforms, but at this time, I wouldn't say that we're prepared. I don't see anybody from physical education in the audience to know if it will satisfy the request for next year, which is why we're bringing these items forward. We can come back with a more detailed inventory at a future meeting if needed to ensure that we're not over purchasing, but we do have Ms. Jimerson here this evening, and at this point in time, we do not feel that that's the case. We feel that this order is necessary for next school year to satisfy the needs at the schools.
So on the physical education side, we have 2 new staff members, as well as we have not ordered since the order we did during COVID when we thought the schools would open far earlier than they actually did. So we've had a long lead time between our last order, And the thought behind this order was to be prepared, seeing as this will be a full year with full students in attendance, and also to provide us a buffer because PE uniforms are not just used for physical education purposes, but often if students need clothing because of something happening, they are provided in those instances as well. The order is flexible, so if you'd like it held over, we can. I will say there is lead time associated, so we can always lower quantity, but uniforms are one of those things we like to have on hand if we need them. And that's all I can say from the financial purchasing perspective.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Jemison. You say there's lead time that we can hold this, just the gym suit portion.
As long as, so this is June. I want to be mindful of the fact that the board likes to take July off. We have a little bit of flexibility, but the later we go into the summer, it will be tight. But it's not a situation where it's ultra tight.
Right.
So we could
and
wait.
so would by next Tuesday you'll have a potential answer?
We will certainly talk to our colleagues.
Ms. Hannah, we will get you an answer. We will send a response to the whole board in writing in regards to how many the need. Do we need more? Do we need more uniforms? What is the overstock and etc. We'll get that out to you by early next week.
Okay. Ms. Lindsay?
Maybe clarify if I'm wrong, but can you confirm what grade levels these uniforms are for? Because I'm not necessarily sure the waiver would impact these students.
Okay.
So I want to be very clear. I am not our two PE coordinators. My understanding from where I sit on the purchasing side is uniforms are used at high school and middle school in situations and sometimes provided to all students as needed.
Perfect, thank you.
You know, students malfunction, accidentally threw up.
Yeah. Back in the day of dress code, if your skirt wasn't long enough.
That was my generation.
Dean Garcia, love her. Love you, Dean Garcia.
Excuse me, Ms. Amy.
Yes, Mr. McBride?
I would say who's ever in charge of PE that's dispersing the uniforms need to be at the podium. That's the person that we need to be talking to. Then that person can explain how many uniforms they got and why we need even more. Thank you.
Yeah, and that would kind of be good for us to hear. All right, Mr. Moten, next item.
Thank you for the questions and comments on that. Next item is the FY 23-24 Continuing Resolution Authority. This is also done on an annual basis, and this is to ensure that the administration has the authority to proceed with contract purchases during the time that there are no board meetings, which has historically been July. After June 27th board meeting next week, we will not have another board meeting until July 25th, I believe, on the calendar. So this is to support that and allow the district to continue contractual obligations.
Are there any questions, comments regarding this item? No? Okay, and so it is, it says in value, expenditures valued in excess of $5,000.
Yes, ma'am. And if you look at what is attached to the board agenda item, you'll see a list of vendors where we project those expenditures to be in excess of that amount.
Those are reoccurring expenditures?
Yes, ma'am. So there are items such as Constellation, which is our electricity, natural gas,
yeah.
Blue
All of
Cross
that
Blue
stuff,
Shield,
yeah.
things
Right.
of that nature.
Right.
But there is a detailed listing because we do have a lot of contractual obligations, Verizon Wireless, cell phones, internet connectivity, things like that that are listed on here. So anything that is a contractual obligation, we included here.
Right. Okay. Are there any questions, comments? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. The next item is item C. This is the administrative salary structure audit with Morgan HR, Phase 2. At a January board meeting, we did ask the Board of Education to approve a salary structure and a compensation report that included principals, assistant principals, and coordinators. This proposal is intended to include our other non-contractual, non-union positions. And the proposal is listed with a projected timeline of 12 weeks for completion, assuming it is approved to go forward at next week's board meeting.
Does anyone have any questions?
For the people at home, can you just detail what positions this is going to look at in case they're not looking at the attachments?
Yes, so this is 65 employees with 60, what's identified on the proposal as 60 unique job classifications. So again, we have our associate superintendents, we have our directors, assistant directors, managers, executive team assistants, non-union specialists, such as our payroll department, that would be included in this number.
Any other comments? Ms.
Do we have-
Fabian?
Do we have a cost on this?
I'm sorry. Mr. Riddle, I'm sorry.
Yeah, do we have a cost factor on this? I didn't see it here. I was just looking to see what this is gonna cost.
It's on page
Yes,
3.
Mr. Riddle.
80 to 90.
We will obviously make sure that's clear when we ask the board to take action, but the cost range provided is $85,000 to $95,000. I would state that this particular job group, we have a lot of variations, particularly as it relates to managers. Core responsibilities, level of supervision and support, as well as credentials required to do the work versus perhaps principal, assistant principal, where you see a lot of similarities in scope and function. Also included in this, which is why it's a little bit higher than the last proposal, was we have training materials associated with this that we'll get at the end. That'll be clear with everybody how individuals are placed, how the comparability study was done, as well as a governing document, so it's clear for not just the public or prospective candidates, but also district staff on how the process and procedure should be for placing individuals, as well as communicating who does and does not have the authority to make compensation offers to candidates.
Thank you.
Mrs. Fabian?
So looking at the last time this happened, we had set aside a certain amount of weeks, and then it took well beyond that. And I don't want to assume, but this 12 weeks is a safe guesstimation, I guess, of how long it's going to complete, understanding that when we previously did this work of looking at different jobs, it took a lot longer just because the systems weren't in place to accurately get all the job descriptions and all of that. So does 12 weeks seem like a feasible timeline, or, like, have we thought about all of those potential roadblocks?
Yeah, so 12 weeks does seem feasible. Last time, I think we said 6 weeks, and it ended up being much longer. But we also have a process and routine with this now that we didn't have before, as well as access to certain databases for comparable information with other districts that we didn't have at the onset of the last phase. So we believe 12 weeks is reasonable for this second phase.
Ms. Lindsay?
And just refresh me on phase 1, because you said something that just brought something to my mind. When we're looking at the credentials for these positions, are we ensuring that we're only requiring what's required by ISB, or is the district looking to elevate credentials within the district? Like, are we asking, in these positions that we're posting and that we're hiring for, are we asking more than the baseline of what we need?
So I would have to answer that, if I'm not answering your question, please let me know. But the baseline of what ISB requires, we are including. There may be some, without looking at all the unique job descriptions in front of me right now, that may be above and beyond depending on the nature of the role, particularly as it might relate in a specialized area such as diverse learners or the bilingual area. But they would be analyzing that to ensure that we have some level of comparability and consistency in what we are requiring, not just in district with other positions, but also other districts
And
for
are-
similar positions.
Okay, are they going to check back with the phase 1 what was differentiated for each of those roles as well to compare?
So the goal and part of the consistency for the district's part with using the same firm is to make sure that they are in sync with each other
Okay,
with the previous 3 positions we looked at.
okay. I believe Mr.
Are there any? Mr. Vukovic?
Yes, this is now the phase 2, and phase 1 and phase 2 both pertain to management. When will the Board of Education be entertaining doing a study like this for the frontline educators, the people that are dealing with children day in and day out, the classroom teachers, the paras, the social workers, that kind of thing? You go on the district website, there are dozens and dozens of vacancies, and it's hard to compete with other districts. And I think that that's something that you need to know, the Board of Education needs to know what changes need to be made to retain people in those positions and to attract them so they will come here. And it's about salary and benefits, just like it was for the first phase that was done.
And I also would like to know, now we are, this is phase 2 of the Morgan report, okay? But we have a consultant firm that is looking into what at this point?
So we're doing an audit over our HR processes, and we will be coming back to the board and reporting on that. We'll give an update at our next student achievement meeting in August. We are not ready for that tonight, but they're looking at processes, procedures, systems, etc. The contract lays out exactly what they're looking at, and Mr. Moulton and Mr. Figueroa has been working with them very closely.
And is that the reason why, I know my phone's been jiggling off the hook, my text messages, that HR has been closed?
Oh, yeah.
It closed, and where people were not able to go in, such as like retirees having to go into HR, but they couldn't because HR was closed?
I know what she's talking about.
Yeah, so Ms. Hannah, that, I wouldn't say the department was closed, but that was not associated with this, or with the other audit that the superintendent referenced.
We are currently in contract negotiations with the teacher union, Mr. Vukovic, so that is part of your question. We're currently in contract negotiations, and our HR department needed to compile some data for those negotiations, which was very labor intensive and time intensive, and during those days, that's exactly what they were working on.
Okay. Okay. All right.
I do have a follow-up question then. So with regard to this audit, are we also looking at people's pay changes or title changes? Is that a component of the audit that's going to be done?
I'm sorry, Ms. Lenzing, just clarify me, are we talking about the Morgan audit or the HR audit?
Does it fall under either bucket, and if so, which bucket?
So the audit with Morgan and Associates will be looking at pay and roles and responsibilities. The audit, give me the name of the other organization we're working with.
The People's Company.
People's Company is more looking for system structures, procedures on how we are delivering services in our HR department.
So then would that fall under a systems piece on changing of titles or changing of pay, or would that fall under the pay piece with Morgan HR?
I'm confused on which piece.
I'll send a
apologize.
follow-up email.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I do want to remind the board to support that is when we got the first phase of the Morgan study, there were some recommendations for title changes based on scope of job responsibilities or level of job responsibilities. So
Oh, I remember
Yeah,
that. That's not what
okay.
I'm referring to, but
that's
thank you.
different. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moulton. Next item?
Okay. Next item is item D. This is a position request for a manager of wraparound center services. This position would report to the director of wraparound services. We did have two other administrative positions, including in addition to the director, in the grant proposal that was approved. If you'll notice under public content of the agenda item, we did have two secretarial positions. We're requesting that this one be reclassified. This is going to be a position that is supported by the ICEJA grant to support the wraparound center.
Well, you guys, I'm just saying, Superintendent, that the agenda item listed, it may not be listed here for the committee meeting, but we need to make it thorough and have the the source of funding.
We
And
will,
how much those positions are valued at?
yes, we will definitely have that on the board agenda item for next Tuesday, along with job descriptions.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Mr. Moten, for the ICEJA grant, is it gonna pay the administrative positions and the manager position 100%? And is it renewable? And if so, like, what's the timeline on that?
Sure. So I do have Ms. Dotson here who can help support, but we do have the original director, 2 secretarial positions that were approved as part of the $800,000 grant. There is a time frame within the grant that identifies December 31st of this year, 2023, where we need to see some movement in action and expenditures associated with the approved positions and scope of work.
So if this comes up for board action for next time, how soon can the job postings be up?
When the board takes action. And there is a job description listed in the attachments for your review that talks about job responsibilities, and this is in conjunction with what's in the grant as well as what was in the director job posting.
Our goal is to have them posted by Wednesday. So once the board votes, then we will immediately start to advertise.
Okay.
And the job, and one other question, then we're gonna move forward. The positions that are in the grant, right? Are the salaries already laid out and outlined, or are we gonna hire somebody and then going to move away from what the grant requirements are for their salaries?
So there is a salary listed in the grant, but that grant is not current. It was approved almost a year and a half ago. So we are going to make sure that the positions that are filled, that are funding these grants, are in conjunction with what we're paying similar job classifications in the district. Now, Ms. Dotson has been in contact with our grant manager with ICEJA to ensure that what we're bringing forward is appropriate. And-
Okay, because I hopefully, and I don't know how many board members has ever had the opportunity to look at a grant application and or completed grant. And it's really interesting if you ever want to look at one, because there's particular aspects of the grant that are required. And once the application is submitted, and we're submitting it for a director at, I'm just picking a number out of the sky, $95,000. Okay, my question is, are we going to veer from what the grant said and give the individual what the district wants them to have? That's what I'm asking.
I'm going to defer to our director of the wraparound services, Ms. Dotson, but in my experience of 20 years in education, you can't veer from a grant. If you say that you are going to pay $80,000 or your range is 60 to 80, you have to stay within your range. And if you decide to change that amount, then it has to go back to ISB for approval. So the district will stay in line with what the grant states. And it does sound to me from what I'm hearing out there that Ms. Dotson may make some changes to the grant based off how her assessment or what she needs for her department, but those will be sent to ISB and will be approved before we implement.
If I may just add, good evening, everyone. I'm Bridget Dodson, the director of the Wraparound Center. So, Ms. Hannah, to your question, with those positions that Mr. Moten, Deputy Moten mentioned, there are approximate salaries. My meetings face-to-face with Mr. Blackman with ICEJA is that we certainly have the authority to amend grants, amend certain items within the grant as reasonable. And so, but as far as the positions, like my position as a director, starting at 125, it's all public, right? So that would be the same thing with the manager's position. We're going to still be comparable to other manager positions. So we're staying within the appropriate range. So it's not going to be an egregious increase or decrease. That's not what we're looking for. And again, we've been talking about retention, so it's important that we have this role filled, and reasonably so,
Yeah.
aligned with
Ms.
everyone else.
Lindsay?
Yes, just, sorry. You tapped on retention. So this position is only listed as 12 months, and based on prior questions, is that a grant requirement that it's a year or 12-month term for the position? Or is that something that whomever we hire, because we know if they're consistently within the district, you don't have to retrain, that's time and money saved?
Right, so the 12 months is because it's an administrative role,
Right.
and 12-month position, that's what we're talking about. But
Okay.
certainly, we would look for, the grant that we have with ICEJA is an annual grant, which Mr. Moulton also alluded to, that the life of this grant goes to December 31st.
Right.
As long as we are producing, and we are, that's the anticipation, we will be producing. And so then it would roll over to the next year, and that person, we're not looking to have turnover with the wraparound. I don't plan on going anywhere, and whoever I hire as the manager, I don't plan on them going anywhere. So again, that's why the salary will be appropriate, because that is one of the, incentives to
Yes,
stay.
I just want to make sure that it's abundantly clear
Yeah,
that even
it's
though
an
this is a
administrative role,
12-month
12-month position.
but the intent is for that person to stay long-term with
Absolutely,
us.
yes, yes.
Are there any other questions? All right, thank you, Ms. Dodson. Okay. Spoke.
Assistant Board President, Superintendent, Board members, and community. I just wanted to mention that if for any reason the funds are not available, the grant stops at that time, that the board is also approving this initiative to continue with local funds. We needed to mention that just in case there aren't any grant monies, right? And then also, one of the things that the district has done over the years, that even though this position is paid from grant funds, the salary is comparable and in alignment with like positions that are in the district. So in other words, just because it's a grant, you're not just going to go, rogue and give a salary, right? It's, comparable with positions that are currently within the district.
Okay. Right, okay. So, thank you, Mr. Moulton, for that. Next item?
Thank you. For those of you who spoke. The next item, item E, is the Crisis Intervention and Safety Department Training Work Year Extension for the 2023-2024 school year. This is a continuation of what the board approved last year. My audio go out? Oh, thank you. What the board approved last year that we're requiring. Nobody.
It keeps going in and out.
I just want to make sure that, okay, there we go.
Oh, it's going
So cut out.
I don't know what's going on, but it's straight.
All right, thank you. Make sure the audience on YouTube doesn't miss anything. The board approved the work year extension of 3 work days for the safety department last year. We wanted to continue that into next year around trauma training, as well as to ensure that the staff had the 3 days training that they get typically at the beginning of the year prior to other staff returning, so that they could participate in beginning of year activities within the department as well as within the schools they're assigned to. There is a copy of the MOU attached to the agenda item as well.
And is that for, that's not for management, that's for the safety staff as well?
Yes, that is for the safety staff that are in the paraprofessional union.
Okay. Ms. Fabian?
I think Adriana was before me.
I'm
That's
sorry.
okay.
Go ahead.
Um,
Gonzalez.
Sorry, I'll be quick. We need to do this. I wholeheartedly think that this is effective training. My question, though, because it's a refresher and for new staff, can we have that data of, for every person in the union that's receiving this training, how close are we to 100% of staff completion? I think that would kind of help to see where our staff are at, because I could see, you know, some people joining in the middle of the year getting hired late, and would they receive this training? Like, who's keeping track of them, you know?
No, we definitely can provide that information. And I'd also like to note, which will be on the agenda item next week at the board, we unintentionally omitted the fiscal impact, which is approximately $33,000. We're going to include that in the agenda item like we did last year. Apologies for that.
Thank you.
Ms. Fabian?
So we think alike. I was going to ask that as well. Do we have plans for those who come in after those dates? And then will those be available virtually maybe for that purpose?
No, those are excellent questions. And any training associated with the safety department, it's our goal, and I know Mr. Wilson isn't here this evening to speak to it, but it's our goal that they get a minimum required training before they go into their assignments. So that would be consistent with that philosophy, and he and the department have been able to do that recently.
Yeah, because I also, through historical knowledge, know that the safety staff was always receiving training and certifications for the trainings that they were going to, and it was not like a one and done. They were continually going through training. And I'm hoping that we are still following that practice, because things change, laws change, all that kind of stuff, and the staff needs to be kept updated, you know, with that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's their professional
Go ahead,
development.
Mr. Riddle.
Yeah, I see on the MOU, it says each safety officer, you know, will have to complete this training if they miss one of these 3 trainings by December 11th. But then we hire throughout the year, so it has to then continue after December and then it says failure to timely complete the training or the makeup trainings could result in discipline or may result in discipline. I just want to make sure that, because since we're hiring new safety throughout the year, some of them are going to have to do it after, you know, into the next year.
Right.
So it have to be, as Ms. Hannah said, a continuing thing. We have to, so we catch everybody, because that safety department moves around.
Yes, sir, and that statement is intended for the current staff members,
Right.
not ones we may onboard after this MOU is ratified. But for our current staff members, and it's really there in case any of them already had summer plans. It is mid-June now. They may have plans, you know, out of state, vacation, etc. on those dates. So that's really a safety net for those current staff members as of today, if they already had previous plans on that date, since this is not currently part of their work year calendar.
And that should be, Superintendent, I certainly hope that that is also in writing somewhere, so that there's no mix-up about that, you know, based on what both Adriana, Mr. Riddle, and Ms. Fabian talked about.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know who was first.
It's tangential. So
Okay.
with regard to new staff being hired on, what's the district's expectation for them to complete this training from the date of hire? Are they supposed to do it within the first 30 days, the first 60 days? Because this is very important information that our staff needs on day one when they're interacting with others in our district.
Sure. So the expectation is as soon as possible. This training, as well as CPI, we do have, and I don't want to call her out, but we do have the paraprofessional union president here this evening. So we're doing this in collaboration with them, but it is always our goal that this training, along with any other required training that's not part of the trauma aspect, what to do in active shooter situations, CPI, et cetera, be done before they're in their permanent assignment, as well as an evaluation process of their skill sets within the first 30, 45, and 60 days.
Okay, Mr. McBride?
I guess my concern was that what does the training consist of? And I understand the safety issue dealing with some of the things that could occur, but I'm talking about the ongoing things that goes on every day when they're in the hallways with the children. My concern, what kind of training they're going to get that deals with behavior, or how do you conduct yourself throughout the day with students to deal with some of the issues that goes on that we deal with. What kind of training they're going to get to for to be able to come up with some intervention to deal with some of the situations that they run into every day. To me, that's important.
Thank you, Mr. McBride. So we can provide a syllabus of what was previously provided this time last year so that everybody's clear on what the expectation and the outcomes are for this training.
Yeah, because I agree with Mr. McBride about the staff needing that training on day-to-day practices. You know, so that, you know, everybody is on the same page. Okay? Any other questions, comments regarding this item? Okay, Mr. Moulton?
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. The next item is item F, intergovernmental agreement between the City of Waukegan and Waukegan School District 2023 to 2028. This is a renewal of the current intergovernmental agreement the district has with the city as it relates to law enforcement. There is a information PowerPoint that's included on the agenda item. This is something that we brought back last time as a comprehensive review in 2018, and we also did an update in 2020. There are no substantial changes to this agreement. We do have a new mayor, a new chief of police. We also have new safety administration, but the details within the agreement, outside of the technical updates and the dates and relevant names, has remained consistent.
Are there any
My-
comments, questions?
My only comments again are going to be about the SRO positions. I'm not in favor of it. I've been very transparent about that since I started my term, but just because it's an additional 60,000, should another officer be added? So.
Any other, Ms. Lindsay?
So I am generally in alignment with Ms. Gonzalez when this came to the board in 2020 when it was virtual meetings. I was one of the speakers against it. Many of the students that came up were against it. What had changed my mind possibly is meeting with Officer Mike Jones. And so what our students are experiencing in the building as it is that the SROs, from my understanding, selected by the police department are not fulfilling that role to its fidelity. They are supposed to be engaging with students. They are supposed to be building rapport with students, bridging that gap with the community so that we can hopefully eventually learn to trust our police department where they need to handle some things on their own end that I'm not going to tap into right now. And what students are telling me is that their arms crossed, not engaging, not approachable, and that's counterproductive to what their role is. But then we had officers like Mike Jones, who's very personable, very interactive with our students, could pull someone aside and say, hey, why are you cutting up? And it's not an escalation, it's an actual moment that they're building to address the problem and get the student back on track. So looking at this, and from what I understand, we also used to have a district interview panel where the district selected the SRO, and I'm not seeing that. So those are some of my concerns, that if we're going to continue down this road, we need to do some big repairs so that our students feel safe and comfortable and that those SROs are an actual resource to them.
Absolutely. Any other comments?
To that end, I agree. I do believe the SROs are there for building that relationship, especially as our kids are getting older and growing and sometimes need some guidance. However, I believe it was a union issue as to why they were being selected the way that they were, because the Waukegan PD does the selection and not us, to Ms. Lensing's point, as a community board doing the hiring. So I don't know if that's something that could be discussed in the future. The other question is for a third resource officer. I know currently one's at Brookside, one's at Washington. Is that person going to be split between both campuses?
So the request for the third was in line with the budget request, and that person would rotate amongst the middle schools.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Mr. McBride.
Well, if I was a parent, I would like for an officer to be there with what's going on around the world today. And I'm not concerned about that officer getting along with my kid any kind of way. My concern would be that officer being there for the safety of all the children in the building. And I'm saying that when I look around the world and see what's going on with all the trauma that's taking place with individuals coming into the school, shooting, individuals that's coming into school, just doing anything that's crazy that would affect my child. I would love to have somebody there on the front line to be able to protect my child when that time comes. And to you, Miss Thingston, the idea of the conflict resolution that you're speaking about that those officers should be trained for, that's what I was saying with our safety office. They need that as well, because they're the ones that's actually every day.
Everybody does, right.
Yeah, they're the ones actually every day that's saying good morning and go to classroom and you don't do this and don't do that, get out the hallway. Those are the ones that need that conflict resolution as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
But the police officers there, I'm hoping that just in case something take place and he's on the front line, and we see it all the time around the world. So you need somebody there to protect our kids if somebody coming there acting crazy.
I understand your point, but I'm going to make one rebuttal in that the presence of police is also traumatic for some of our students. And so their trauma is just as justified as the trauma of gun violence in our schools across the nation.
Very good, yes.
And then just maybe as a board, if we could get kind of more of a clarification of what is the role of the SRO in the schools.
And, yes.
Mr.
and
Christensen. can help with that.
who had their hand up here? I didn't see it. Somebody? Who has a hand? Oh, nobody? Okay. And I just wanted to, say, in agreement with what Ms. Lindsay was saying about, we used to interview our SROs that were going to go into the schools with our kids, and there was principals, there were teachers and everything, administrators that were a part of that, and they got the best people that were going to benefit children, and so. I've heard the same complaints about crossed arms, sitting back, and all of that. I've even heard horror stories about them not even reacting when something broke out. So we're not going to go into that either. So I think that we do need to look at what we're doing with them. As you and I talked earlier today, that this was something that I am not in favor of, simply because of the agreement that was made between the school district and the Waukegan Police Department based on an incident with one of our students, and to me it's going to be like the training, because they're supposed to be training at some point with our staff too, and to me it's going to be bias training, because they're going to be kind of, I'm going to just say, tiptoeing around things because of the experiences that they have, and because of the agreement that the police department made with the school district about not coming into the schools and dealing with things with our children, except on, and I don't even know if it's an exception, but they don't even deal with our kids. So why would we use them for training? So this intergovernmental agreement, right now, I am kind of 60-40 against. And I think we need to look at getting someone that is unbiased and that to come in and to train and to remove the police department from the aspect of training our staff. And we have a question back here, Mr. McIntyre.
So,
Can he
Who is
respond?
that?
Ms. Hannah, can Mr. Moulton clarify something though? 'Cause I-
yes,
Yes,
Ms.
okay.
Hannah, if I could, before we get to the next question,
Okay.
in response to what you stated, the day-to-day responsibilities of a safety officer, that training is a responsibility of the department administration. They have asked the Waukegan Police Department to give some trainings in the past that are highly specialized skills, such as bomb threat and awareness training. But as far as the day-to-day responsibilities, that's the responsibility of the safety administration, Mr. Wilson's administrative team.
Right, and everybody knows all of the incidents and all of that has transpired over the last couple years or so. And I'm just saying that we need to do something different, okay? Because there are I get complaints all the time about, and they're kind of real crazy, but I get complaints about that. Just say the high school goes on lockdown, right? And none of the safety staff can tell you why there's even a lockdown. And that does, to me, that is not like adequate training. Now, whatever that means, I don't know. But I would certainly hope that we're going to look at those type things and follow up. Mr. Riddle?
Yeah, I haven't spoken yet. I just want to say that I do support having our SROs in our facilities, but I do like the idea of maybe a little different image. The officer, for instance, in the back of the room has a nice uniform on. Uniform says a lot. Our SROs could wear maybe a uniform like that instead of the normal police uniform. It's just something a little more calming, a little more different and I certainly agree with Ms. Lenzing, the personality of that officer, such as Mike Jones was when he worked in our schools, says a lot to the kids. The way he greets the students coming in, I mean, it certainly builds a positive relationship. If we can't have a committee to select that officer, at least we could maybe tell the police department what we're really looking for. We're looking for a young officer who has some relationship and wants a relationship with our kids. And that's going to say a lot to our students. And if there was a possibility of a uniform, like we see it with the officer in the back of the room here, that looks different. It could be a police officer, certainly with the Waukegan identification. I don't know if that officer is one of the bike patrol or what, but I have seen a few of those guys riding around recently.
Can you come up and clarify for us on your uniform? That would be helpful. We apologize. Thank you so much.
Is that a
I would have
know,
been happy to
but
have.
I mean, if you want to do a catwalk, that's up to you. That is a
I
joke.
think it's just an alternate uniform.
It's an alternative uniform. Maybe we could have an alternative uniform like that. I don't know. It looks nice. This officer looks really nice.
So we do have Deputy Chief of Police Craig Neal with us this evening.
Right.
He's worked with the district for several years, even prior to since I've been in district. And if he would like to speak on his bicycle uniform, he can do that.
I'm not sure if that's a bicycle uniform, but
Good evening, school board. Good evening, community. I stand before you. The bicycle uniform that you referred to, our command staff is currently going towards white shirts so that when we're out in the community or if there's something going on, people know that they can go to the right person if there's a problem and they need an answer. So the white shirts are,
is a
as
command uniform.
they're called on the streets, is so that people will know, hey, I'm speaking with a command officer who can answer my question and direct me in the right direction should I need some further assistance. I've heard some of the comments about our SROs that are in the schools. I do know them, and I'm wondering if you know them, because I think if you knew or had a chance to speak with them, you would be on board with the choices that were made in the past that have built relationships with the students, that are approachable. I understand the comments that were made, and everyone's a little different. But if you were to speak with them and make a judgment for yourself, I think you would change your mind. If there's ever an issue, I hope you know that you have a partner at the Waukegan Police Department that will address the issue and make sure that we have someone that's in the schools that we can depend on to do the right thing, and also is in favor of what you would like to see interacting with the students. It's a partnership, and it has to be that way. But I do feel as though we have the right people in the position at this time.
Good.
I've not heard of anything different or any complaints about the two officers that are there. But again, that's something that we're always willing to sit down at the table and make sure in our partnership we have what we want.
Respectfully,
clarify?
Deputy Chief Neal, apologies. While it would be beneficial for the board to meet the SROs, my personal opinion is I want to hear from the perspective of the students. They're the ones in there 5 days a week. They're the ones that are experiencing these interactions. So I'm curious to what their stance is. So is there a place that our students can call or email or connect with either you or whomever regarding any concerns with any SROs they have in the building?
If there are some concerns or if there's a complaint about an SRO, there's a complaint process with the City of Waukegan's Police Department, and that is open for them and their parents. But I have to rebut what you're saying. They're students, and there are young people. I do agree with you that if there's an issue, we have to hear from them and address the issue. But it would also be wise to get a vast understanding, not only from what you're hearing from the student, to hear from the officer as well. I think to get a holistic view and to be able to understand what the students are saying and to know for yourself who they're dealing with would be more informative for you.
I'm not saying that I'm not going to listen to the SRO officer, but again, this is what they are experiencing on the daily. So if on the daily they see someone posted up with their arms crossed the entire time, that doesn't say engaging to me. But I hear your point.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr.
I wanted to
Alajakis, didn't we do a survey regarding the SROs? Can you speak to that, please?
Good evening, Board of Education, Vice President Hannah, Superintendent, community members, and staff. Yes, this district did this. If you guys remember, back in 2020, this issue came up, and the board asked us to explore it. We did at that time conduct a survey of high school parents as well as high school staff. As well as high school students. So those two groups where we asked them a series of different questions regarding SROs, their familiarity with them, what their role is, whether they feel uncomfortable with them, and ultimately whether they want to maintain them in the building. Now this was about 3 years ago, so but the students at that time had been at the school or in the high school without that COVID interruption.
Are we able to do another one since it's been 3 years and a lot has happened during the COVID pandemic?
I don't see that being an issue. I think that's something if the board is interested in, we could explore revisiting a survey either in the summertime or as we get closer to the school year again.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yeah, I also want to, in a little bit, I think we need to let Mr. McIntyre talk because he had his hand raised.
Yes,
but
he did.
yeah, I wanted to clarify my viewpoint. Officer Neal, thank you for being here. I had a conversation with interim Chief Zupek, when incidents regarding our students were kind of coming around, and my worry is not just from like a student perspective as was shared, but because of the severity of the situations that we've had in our high school that are out there for the public to see and digest, and how that's really been what's kind of colored our perspective on our partnership. And I don't think it was the SRO. I don't think it was any individual person. It might have been, a call and response from the outside coming in. But just, for people to like understand what happened in the past couple years, we've had students dragged out of class. We've had a student wrongfully arrested because the police department had incorrect information, right? And my opinion, I respect the will of the board and the administration's recommendations, but I feel like we sacrificed the principal because of that. And I understand that the police department owned their mistake, and there were panels that were held, but I don't know internally what happened in the police department after that incident. We know what happened in the school district, but I don't know what happened in the police department to rectify that situation. And so I'm all for the partnership. I'm all for more people helping our kids. I really don't care. But at the end of the day, if the outcomes are that they're engaging or participating in the school to prison pipeline, that's what I worry about. And so if they can be on call, I'd rather them be on call and not be in the schools where there could be kind of these murky situations that happen. Because I think our safety officers need to step up and fill that role of like facilitating those conversations. That's why the item just before this was about the trauma-informed care. But that, to me, I would want someone to fill that position that knows the trauma that some of our kids have experienced, because some of them haven't graduated yet, right? And that's what I'm speaking from. I'm not speaking. I told Interim Chief Zubek, I was like, it's not a me against you situation. That's the least of my intention. It's more of like the outcomes that we're seeing, where I'm like, if our teachers don't know when to call on the SRO, I'd rather just not get into that muddy water to begin with. So that's what I wanted to say to clarify my viewpoint.
Okay,
Thank
Mr.
you.
McIntyre, sorry.
So in listening to all of this, it just takes me back to being a part of some of these committees and panels that have been had on the subject. I made a point during one of them that one of my issues with the SRO situation is that nothing to do or little to do with the SRO and more to do with how the administration uses them. So, for example, I've personally been in situations where the SRO has been called in to a disciplinary meeting and the SRO is hearing things potentially that arguably could be illegal that was said by the student. Well, that student at that point no longer possesses the same right to remain silent. He's talking in a school setting. He doesn't think that he's in trouble of potentially being arrested by the SRO. The SRO is still a police officer. And that point really needs to be recognized by everybody involved, because it's discretionary. The SRO has the discretion about whether or not he takes that to the next level or not. They have bad days as well, and I think the students need to have consistency with that. And if they know that they're talking that they have established a relationship with, that's a wonderful thing. But the SRO should be consistent, the same every single day. And if they've made a decision that they're not going to take certain things on to the command staff, that should be the same every day. So all the students, because that's going to spread throughout the school. The students are going to realize that this is somebody I can talk to potentially. But if it switches from one day to the next, 1 week to the next, that's problematic. And that's why there's such a void in trust between students and staff, as well as students and law enforcement right now. So that's really one of the bigger points that I want to hammer home. I've read the MOU ad nauseum, right? And the way in which it is worded, the SRO is basically at the leisure of the administration in the building. And if the administration in the building is utilizing them as a tool to intimidate kids, that's a problem. And the students are absolutely saying that that's how they feel. Now listen, I don't talk to all the kids. Every population of people, no matter what your position is, you can get a snapshot of students to say what you want them to say. It's up to the individuals in charge to make the more informed decision using their years of experience and wisdom. So I just wanted to say that, just for clarity.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. All right, do you have another comment?
I agree with Mr. McIntyre, and I think I'm always in favor of community schools and building those partnerships and relationships so that when they go beyond our school walls, that they do have relationships outside of that school day. But again, to your point, it's that consistency and ensuring that our staff also knows when to utilize them. And I do just want to also say publicly, because I don't think I've had the chance, a thank you to Deputy Chief Neal. I don't know if he's around the corner. I can't really see him. Because he does also come out and do a lot of our community events, and he's present. And I think maybe that's one thing that we also need to include our SROs in on, that when there are community events, so that not only are the students seeing them, but their families are seeing them and seeing them as approachable and part of our community.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And I just want you to know, even if we don't agree, I respect your opinion. I value your opinion. Again, I only ask for us to have a favorable relationship and partnership where we can sit down, discuss, and know what each other are thinking and what values we want to share.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Deputy Chief. Deputy Chief Neal, and thank you for all of your comments and questions regarding that. And so, LeBaron, the next 3 items are rental waivers. If you could just basically just kind of run through, unless anybody else has any particular specific questions about the items G, H, and I.
I just want to know why G is retroactive. It looks like it was submitted on the 30th, and it says the date of the event was for June 3rd, but on our summary it was for June 10th. Can we just understand why it's a retroactive waiver?
So retroactive because it's already occurred. That's
I
why.
know what the definition is, but why is it retroactive in this instance?
Because it has not previously come before the Board of Education.
Why not?
Because this request was submitted to the board at the time it was submitted to our facility rental specialist in the operations department. If it had come earlier, we would have obviously submitted it earlier. But at the time it was submitted to us, we're providing it to you all. And even though it is retroactive, we did want to honor the request because it supports our students.
So maybe like what would help is, I don't know if they're familiar with our process, because some organizations don't know that we waive rental requests. Being, you know, if they want to rent our facilities and they don't maybe have the funds to have that be an option up front for organizations, because this doesn't happen a lot, but every once in a while it does happen, because there's some people that don't know if you want to request a waiver, we can approve it or not.
It's got to come early, yeah.
Yes,
So it comes earlier.
either a full or partial waiver, as well as there is a time stipulation. I believe it's 45 days in the procedure. But again, we are bringing this request forward as it came to us. We are also, to remind the board, revamping our facility requests and maintenance request software. So we will re-roll out those procedures, instructions, training at the time that that's complete later this summer.
Thank you.
The next, go ahead.
All right.
Oh, you can, are there any other questions about that item? You can just go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead. So again, we had the 3 facility requests per board policy 3206. And then we have our reports under the report section 6 for the board's review. And if there are any questions on the reports, please feel free to ask.
Comments, anyone? Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
No, we're not yet.
Oh, sorry.
We have the items
Listed
6A, B, C, D, treasurer's report. Are there any questions regarding those items? Okay, we have B, student activity and convenience account, bank reconciliation. Are there any questions? Hearing none. C, schedule of investment reports. Hearing no comments, questions. And D, life safety information. Are there any questions, comments about that? And everything there are attachments that the community can look at, and we will be approving or, well, voting, I'll say, voting on these items at next Tuesday's meeting. But if there are no other comments, questions in reference to the OSC meeting, I would like to entertain,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all right, we got a motion by Mr. Riddle, second by Ms. Gonzalez. Roll call, please.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Lensing?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes, motion passed. We are now in adjournment for the OSC meeting, and we will move directly into our student achievement meeting. And I think we have minutes. I will call the student achievement meeting to order. Okay. And we need a roll call.
It's downstairs. Okay.
Mr. McBride?
Yeah.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes, President.
President Ewing? Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Here. Yes.
Okay. And item 3A, the approval of meeting minutes for May 16th, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned by Mr. Riddle, second by Ms. Gonzalez. Are there any changes, deletions, additions to the minutes? Roll call, please.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes, minutes are approved. All right, and so now I will turn the meeting over to Dr. Cesario.
Okay, good evening, Ms. Hannah, Superintendent, board members, members of the community, colleagues, and guests. So we have several information items. Ms. Hannah, I'm not sure if you'd like for me to announce each one or how you'd like to proceed.
You can, I see that you all added some. I thought we was gonna get out of here quick.
I don't think I don't think we did, but if we did, we'll make sure we go through them. So I apologize. We've had some issues with board docs lately, so if there's additional on here.
Well, there are there are information items for the board, A through Q, and there are attachments there for the public. I know that I looked at the items that were on the agenda, and the attachments were kind of self-explanatory.
Can we talk about like certain ones?
And if there are specific ones that that the board would like to call out and talk about, we can do that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Other than that, Dr. Cesario, if you can get started and go through them.
Sure.
If you wish.
Okay. So item A is renewal of Amplify education reading assessments for SY24.
And if I may, the only question that I had, and I did speak with Dr. Cesario about this earlier today, if the renewals were multi-year contracts, And at this point, I'm trying to be fiscally feasible, because if we have to be mindful that 2-3 years down the line, we don't know what's going to happen. You know, we have one of the best financial departments in the world here, and but we still have to be mindful of our spending, you know, because we're getting ready to come into a cycle where our budget revenue is going to decrease. And so that's all. Multi-year contracts, I think we need to rethink that.
Can we just pull up the item? Sorry, Mr. Wood.
You can, I'm going, as presiding vice president officer, I'm going to say yes. If we could just call out the ones that we have issues on.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Miss Hannah. I was just saying because the the thing wasn't pulled up, so yeah.
So
Next
you
one.
have
Sorry.
some specific ones that you want to talk about
I just wanted to talk about, if you could go back, Lee.
to the agenda?
Yeah, the only one I wanted to call out was item H, purchase of no red ink writing support. It's a writing program, but is this our first time purchasing this software, Dr. Cesario?
Good evening, Board of Education, community, colleagues. Yes, it is. It is our first time. We're going to invite our literacy coordinator up here for 6th through 12th grade.
Okay.
But it is one of those supports that will unify the school across our writing. It's some of the information, the supports that we spoke about specifically when we were speaking about paper, right? And how we are unifying all of our courses and writing across disciplines. It's a huge push, right? And how do we write within our disciplines? And this is one of those supports that our high school can use across campuses. And I'll have Beth step up here for any further questions.
Good evening, Board. Yeah, so this is a new purchase. It's a writing platform that would cover grades 6 through 12. And with the new ISB Writing Intensive Code that's new for this upcoming year, we wanted to provide some extra supports for the teachers. And this platform really, it goes into grammar and it goes into the different writing types and offers just practice and writing across explicit writing instruction and like feedback. It really helps support the process and improved writing.
Okay.
And do you,
Oh, go ahead, Miss Hannah.
where have this platform been successful at in other school districts?
It's actually, I think it's 60% of school districts across the nation use this platform currently, and they've all seen great success within this platform.
You got. I don't know you. I mean, I don't know your face at this point, but you have to know that I'm kind of dive deep. Okay.
Yeah.
But you know, the percentage is one thing. The general statement is also one thing, and I really prefer you know, a few examples of specifics, you know, because see, when we expend our money, you know, we want to make sure that we're buying something effective.
Of course.
And the outcomes for our students are going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 60% of school districts use it. I could definitely give you more info around that. That's a great question. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Fabian.
I don't see anything anywhere if this is a bilingual program, if it's going to also be used with our dual language students.
Yeah, it would be.
Platform. So the question is the platform only in English, or does it also have a bilingual component? So they're also doing SLA, or Spanish language arts.
They do have some Spanish supports inside the platform.
No, I'm with you, Ms. Fabian, because we have to make sure that we're using, or we're buying things that will encompass all of our students, you know, okay? Ms. Lindsay?
Just for clarification purposes, this tool is just going to be used in the classroom, or is it accessible from home as well?
It's also accessible from home.
Okay, and so we do have members of our community that don't speak English or Spanish. We have a growing Filipino community. We have a growing Indian community. So there's more than just the two languages.
Right.
So how will those students get support, or how will their families get support with this platform?
Yeah. What we can, it's kind of the piece, not to go back to, in thinking about all of our languages and the at-home support across writing, that was one of those niches of paper that could help some of those things. And so in exploring how this platform can ultimately support every course across all of the writing, right? It's more of a tool and a resource on the process. The languages could be languages of the user and the teacher within the course. All of our students practice their native language and English. So we know that we have that. This specifically, explicitly, is around English. However, the process is the process no matter what language. It doesn't have all of those languages and the home support like paper would have, and what we could have reached out if we were at home. This is specifically face value that can help with grammar and English. This is English language arts and the foundational skills and the language skills within writing that's in ELA for those standards.
So can internet browsers, so can internet browsers essentially translate it for the families? Is it accessible to do that?
I would have to look into that, Ms.
If we could
Linsing,
just look into that.
If it could, and then also how choppy that would be. Like if we can definitely explore that with them. The main thing that we're pushing across courses, no matter what language, is really the process of writing and how do students move through the draft process, the brainstorming process, the final draft, the peer-to-peer conversation, the collegial conversations around feedback, that we're building those practices within our students so that they're prepared, right, to have those final drafts, no matter it's college or career, writing, what it would be. But I will definitely get back to you, and we'll look into that, and we'll reach out to them.
Okay, and then just to confirm, we're going to get the data around why we're choosing this as our writing platform
Yes.
in alignment with the other 60% of the nation.
Yes. As far as the 60% of the nation, I'll look into that, Ms. Linsing, but I can say that within our team, we looked across 3 writing platforms. I don't have them offhand right now. The ultimate goal is that we have a platform that the students can move their portfolios and their work across, from 6th grade to high school. This had the best pieces and resources for that. The others didn't have everything in the boxes that we checked off, and we can share that with you. What the other 2 were that we looked at and that we explored and met with, and what they offered as far as the platform goes. So there was work and there were hours and teams that did look into it, and we will share that with you all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Fabian?
Did you?
No,
And it is important to know that this is not there. There is not, we do not have a platform across it yet, right? So these are all those systems and also professional development and conversations and collegial conversation amongst our teachers that they can lean into around this stuff. We are seeing needs of kids that do have gaps, especially within foundational skills at high school, and we know that. So this is one of those things that we think can really support, and not just giving you like, hey, just do this and learn this as a teacher right at the high school. How does this fit into our writing intensive as we're moving into our 2nd year of our high school plan, right? What does this mean? What are our baby steps? And we talk a lot about this across this year of looking, what is the support around it and the communication, right? And so really thinking, how do we fold this in every year so that our students become stronger writers, but also so that our teachers feel comfortable with writing, especially in areas that they might not be strong in, this is something that we can lean in on.
So I want to clarify again, because the question was, did it support Spanish language arts? Unfortunately, in our district, we only teach English language arts and Spanish language arts through our dual language programs. Our TPI programs for our other languages do not teach the language standards. So the question is not, does it just translate like for families in Spanish, but actually offer content, because we know, again, vocabulary and
Not in
semantics
Spanish
is very
for this,
different
right.
in Spanish than it is in English.
That's right.
So you just said that most of it was supporting English language arts, and
That's
it has
right.
some bilingual support, but does it get to the Spanish writing is what my question is. Like, because again, syntax and grammar is different than it would be in English.
Right. So that's exactly what we'll get back on. Like, if I do not believe that it has the Spanish syntax and grammar and language standards that it offers in English.
So it would just be a translation, sort of.
Right. And then how does that translation look is really what Ms. Lensing's asking, and we will
Right.
follow up on that. What does that look like? Because majority of the time, it does not translate.
And now my question is, if it's not having those very important components to it, why are we expending money? And I know that there are other platforms out there that could be purchased that would cover not only our ELA students, but also our bilingual students, as well as our other students, as Ms. Lensing named. So we should not be just purchasing one single template.
No, and I think that's a great point that you're making. And some of these platforms, some of these tools that we're using, they're not all encompassing. And so sometimes we have to use multiple to support. And so I can, if you have something that you said was all encompassing, we'll review that as well. What the team looked at right now, this was the best out of the three that was chosen. Paper did offer some options that did assist, but to the point that Ms. Fabian's making and to the point that you're making, it is an all-inclusive, and we're not trying to promote it as something that is, but it is important to note that for this particular aspect of ELA specifically, that's what this purpose is, and we may have to supplement it with something else. Yes. But this is where we're at right now, and just to go back to something that Ms. Rice de la Sanchez said, and that is that we're building the structure right now with this to build those supports in place. But we will, if there's something that you have, we're happy to vet it. We'll get the answers back that to the questions that were posed by the board members as well.
Yeah, Ms. Fabian?
So just real quick too, if we could have kind of like a general plan for promotion, if this is something that's also going to be utilized at home, how are we getting that word out there to the parents so that we don't fall into the same trap that we did with paper? To Ms. Lensing's point, we have a high Malayali population. It is a very specific dialect that doesn't.
It is.
That we probably won't find any
and
services for, but can we plan for that?
Sure. And and I was going to say, we are coming up with there are a number of languages, right? Not every, and some don't have written either, right? So we're not going to find something, and that's why I wanted to clarify, we're not going to find something that covers everything, right? And so it's really important that we try to cover as much as we can, and some we're going to have to supplement in different ways, right? We'll have to go to some of the organizations that are specific to that particular language or culture, and solicit information and get materials from them. And especially as we start to expand with the cultural and the linguistic diversity that we have in Waukegan. But I think it's important to note, just to reiterate this point, is that it's not a one-size-fits-all. Some of these are going to be, we may have to supplement multiple times, right?
So
But this
I'm
is the
not
one that's not
speaking
going to cover, no, I just want to just really clarify one point really quickly, is it's not going to cover everything and everybody,
Yeah.
right?
No, and I don't expect it to, but I'm saying that when we promote it to our families at home, we do have the data as a district of the 31 languages that are spoken in this district and what are those top languages. So
right.
that we can prioritize when we're sending home information that those families are also receiving
Right.
that same, instructions on how to log in and what it's for. And you don't have to have the knowledge. I was raised by a mother who didn't speak English. She didn't have to know English to know that I had to do my homework, right?
Right.
She just had to know to ask, did I do my homework? So, to Ms. Lansing's point is if we're sending it home, making sure that we have a plan, that we're allowing parents to understand how do they log in, how long should kids be on, and that kind of stuff, just so that they have a general awareness of what the kids are doing with these apps.
Right.
And that's something that we can do at parent nights too, is have something set up so that they can parents can interface with that and ask questions and know who the point person is. So that's an excellent point.
Yeah. One final comment before we move on is that I would feel, because this is our first time purchasing it, I would feel way more comfortable saying yes, because I think it's needed. We need something that kind of does the work that paper did. But again, as was a little different, because I know it was tutoring, it's different. But I feel like maybe in the attachments for when we take board action to maybe describe a little bit of what the rollout looks like for
Sure.
all the teachers to have.
Yeah. We have implementation plans.
Yes.
For sure. I
that
think
we can
that's
see
that's it's important, and that's what the team's been charged with anything new that we have,
Awesome.
is to have an implementation plan along with professional development, progress monitoring plan. Exactly. No, that's an excellent point. Can I just clarify one thing really quickly?
Yeah.
Paper had one aspect of this.
Yes.
That's what she was referring to, when you could edit the paper and it would
Right.
give you
Like the
feedback on it.
review.
I just want to be very clear on that.
Yeah.
So that was one aspect of what they offered.
Right.
So it did offer on-demand homework help,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how they started. That's hence the name Paper, was kind of doing the same thing No Red Ink does.
Mm-hmm.
And No Red Ink has been around for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, she said 60%, but we can get you some more information about that.
We'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
course.
And preferably about schools with demographics
Yeah.
like Waukegan,
Yeah.
so that we can.
No problem. Yeah, there definitely is. Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll get you exactly also the usage within Brookside. They have used it this year.
Okay.
So we'll share the user within our next upload. We'll share the plan. We'll share what we have so far. And this is more universal now. Like, how do we have a platform that follows students, that we're supporting the transition and the bridging from 8th grade to 9th grade? This is one of those things, right? In which we do have some user data that we can share, and we'll put all that in there.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
quick question on that. So who was leading the charge at Brookside with this then?
Dr. Field.
Okay, so was Dr. Field able to come and give an
Yeah,
expanded?
he's here. He can.
Oh, hi.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry.
He's here right now.
I don't
if you
know
would
you.
like that.
I'm
Yeah.
Christine. Nice to meet you.
He
Do
most
you
definitely
mind
can.
coming up and expanding what your experience has been at Brookside since we're here?
Good evening, board. Thanks for having me. I wasn't planning on speaking about No Red Ink, but I can speak to the experiences that we had at Brookside. This past year, we wanted to test out something, a platform that we know has been used broadly across schools within locally, but also, as we mentioned, nationally. But what the teachers have done with the students, it's for English language proficiency and growth. And so it's been used in our ESL and ELA classrooms. And so this past year we had probably 15 to 20 different teachers within ESL as well as ELA work through No Red Ink and the platform. And it's what the students are able to do is they'll work through skills and grammar, some topics that they were working on, particularly identifying parts of speech, adjectives and adverbs, adjectives in general, identifying sentences and fragments. So learning how to write, as Ms. Valeda had talked about it with our writing intensive, and the importance of writing and being able to communicate. Our students need to understand how to use the English language in order to communicate their thoughts and their opinions. And No Writing does a really nice job because it also differentiates specifically for the student based on what they need. So the teacher, through the platform, as students are going through and answering questions, it's going to differentiate what they need as far as their language, or particularly their writing of the English language. And so it's really helpful for the teachers for groupings, for individual assessments, and then ultimately the teachers are getting formative feedback, so then they can work with the individual student on what their writing conventions, what they need as far as their writing conventions. And so No Writing has been a really good platform for our Brookside teachers. They've used it quite extensively. They've done some trainings after school to learn more about how to use it, and then they've done within their course teams, particularly in Lit 10, they've talked about how they're going to use it, how they used it throughout this past second semester. So we tried it this year, and it's definitely been a positive thing.
So both teachers and students received it well and interacted and engaged with it well?
Correct, and I have the qualitative, like how to go, what did you think about it, that type of thing. I don't have any quantitative.
Fully understood.
Yeah.
Fully understood.
I have a question, something that made me sit up and look at you. You talked about adjectives, adverbs, all that stuff. And what grade level is this?
6 to 12.
It's for Brookside, it's 9-10.
So in 9th grade, you all are teaching parts of speech?
We continue to, yes. We have a variety.
Sentence structure and all that?
Absolutely.
That should.
It's a part of the standards, as well as we have a variety of different learners that come to Brookside, and so we have some students that are exceptional writers, and we have some students that are still learning aspects of all of this and everywhere in between. And as I mentioned earlier too, it's used within our ESL classes, and so students who are learning English and how to write English, this has also been a positive benefit for them too.
That's good. And Superintendent, I'm just going to say that that we, just in my experience, that we should be past parts of speech and adverbs and all of those. We should be teaching our high school students prepositions and
that's a part of it as well, and that was just the first.
All of that stuff,
Yes.
Yeah, okay, because that was alarming.
Yes.
To hear that.
There's plenty of other aspects to it. That was just the first that popped up on my list. So.
Okay. Okay. Well, I would definitely be looking forward to update, Dr. Cesario.
Pardon me?
About that, I'll be looking for an update. And
Yes, sure.
For how that's going with our students and our teachers and so forth. Okay.
And then a really quick thank you for being put on the spot. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I love that you mentioned the formative.
Oh,
Sorry, I just
sorry.
want to say I love that you mentioned the formative assessments for the teachers, and being a former teacher, that's like super helpful when you can get like a third eye on a document that they're seeing the same thing you are. So thank you for adding that.
Okay. And
Thank
are
you.
there any other specifics?
Well, Ms. Vukovic had a...
Okay, Ms.
Say again?
Ms. Vukovic, you
Yes.
have a question, comment?
Yes. Is this on?
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to ask about 5C, the renewal of the Panorama Educational SEL screener. So have we been using that for a long time?
We have been using it since I've been here.
Okay, so at
Yes.
least 4 years.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Here's what I want to know, just as a teacher using that program, then if it is the same one as they were using here.
Oh, it was DESA when I first got here, and then it did transition to
Okay,
Panorama.
whatever it is,
Yes.
it sounds
Yeah.
like it's similar
It's been for
program.
the past few years,
Okay.
yes.
So the teacher goes in and has to screen all of her students. At least this, I'm going to explain what I think well, maybe you tell me what it is, and that's better than.
Good evening. So for DESA, as a teacher, I did DESA. As a teacher, DESA, we completed the screener. For Panorama, our students 3 through 12, they complete the screener on their own. Our teachers will complete the screener for kindergarten, first and second grade at beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of year.
Okay. What happens with the data then?
So after the window closes, the teachers and the students get about 10 days to complete the screener. A week after the window closes, the data is sent out to us as a district team and then the building's MTSS teams. So what the building MTSS teams will do is they will take a look at the screeners, and kids are kind of tiered of red, yellow, green, based on the 5 domains that are in there, like growth mindset, self-regulation. I can't remember the 3 off the top of my head. So they're kind of rated, and the teams will then decide, okay, was this just kind of a fluke that happened this day, or do we see something that the student may need an additional support of growth mindset? Can the teacher was it a whole class issue? Can she do a second lesson on growth mindset and really kind of do that throughout the first 8 weeks of the school year? So it just depends on what the data tells them, but the buildings teams will look at that.
And then if there's, I'm going off the DESA, was that what it was called? DESA?
Yes.
I don't know if the data comes out the same, like when we had that, it was.
Yeah, so it does.
Okay, and then when you find students that are in the red, now granted, now you're looking at the students picking that themselves, so chances are they're not going to really be the truthful about the fact if they're, I mean, I don't know, is there things about like behavior? I mean, it is behavior.
It is a little bit, like it'll ask questions of how do you feel, or do you feel that the teacher, or can I make friends easily, or what happens if I think there's a question about there, can I kind of problem solve with my friends? So it's just questions that kind of gear towards how the student may be doing in the school, how they're doing with friends, peers. Do they feel, there's also, for the middle schoolers also, relationship building, so how do the students feel about their teachers? Do they feel respected? Do they feel that they're heard? There's questions about diversity, equity. There's a lot of different questions that this screener kind of gives a wide range.
Okay, so it doesn't really pull out the students that are having severe behavior issues in the classroom like DESA was.
Not behavior, because that's what we use our ODRs for, our discipline referrals. That's where you're going to see the behaviors. But sometimes, not every student, but there may be a correlation between the Panorama screener and the behaviors the teachers are seeing in the classroom.
Okay. So, and then at that point, those students will be seen by somebody if, that's where I feel with the other screener, the one that was 4 years ago, or must have been 5 years ago then, because I've been gone for 4, that nothing really happened. We had to fill this out fall, winter, spring. If a child, the first 8 identified, there's something, it would drop down, then the teacher would have to fill out like 30 more questions.
32 questions, yes.
Yeah, I remember that. And
Yes.
You probably do too then in the
Yes, I
classroom.
did too, yes.
And then I had, my last year, I had four students, all 3 fall, winter, spring, that were in the red, but nobody ever talked about it after I went through all of that, and then nobody ever came to say, wow, it looks like you've got 4 kids in your room doing, that appear to not be able to function in a regular classroom. Right. What can we do to help? That piece never happened. So I guess that's the only, when I saw this, I just wanted to make sure that whatever you're collecting from it, that happen afterwards.
Correct.
And that's like really do something about it.
So we are very fortunate that we have certain buildings that have an SEL counselor that really kind of sit at that MTSS team, and we'll look at all those students from the Panorama screener to say, okay, can I see these kids for, even if it's a short time, for 6 weeks, like let's put a short 6-week intervention in place because they all struggled with social awareness.
Right.
And then let's, when we do MOI, let's see if that kind of increased.
Okay, that's all. I just was trying to make sure that something's going to happen
Of course,
afterwards.
yes,
Because
yes.
it doesn't do any good to spend all this time
Correct.
doing that, because then
of course,
what's
yes.
the point of
Correct.
going through?
What's the point of collect data if you don't
Thank
do
you.
anything with it?
Yes.
No problem.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yeah, I think that's a great segue. I don't know if other people have questions about the information items. Just for clarity, Mr. Lee, we were on item 5, we were on item 5H, but then we were talking about item 5C, renewable panorama education SEL screener. That was what you guys were talking about just now.
Yes.
Right.
If, you know, just sort of as a point of order, can we go to the Jocelyn presentation? Because, okay, because that, I think to Ms. Vukovic's point, the partnership that we built, I'm curious to see how it'll work out, because where my worry is how the referral process. How does a teacher or a staff member get the student actual support and, you know, follow up
Right.
with them if they're going through stuff?
I just want to add one little additional piece. It's another piece of data. So it's not using one piece of data in isolation, but it's using a portfolio of data or assessments to determine how we're going to provide support for students.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's an excellent question, an excellent point, that we want to use it, right? It makes no sense to have something and do it for doing, you know, just to do it, right?
Right.
So,
or in
right.
this case, like, who has access to it? That's,
Right.
I think,
But-
what I was hearing as the
We
question.
going back to the agenda.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna. I'm gonna
Okay,
have.
now, if we could go
oh.
back to the agenda, I want to close out.
The information items? Sure.
Sorry, no, I had questions on 2 more for the,
Okay,
and I'll try to make
I want
it
to
quick.
close that out before we get to the Jocelyn. And
Sure.
there's a reason I'm doing this, because it's information items.
Yeah.
And if you all have any questions, you all know that board president says to send the questions in, and we could expedite, you know, time.
Yes.
And so I did want to ask one question regarding the panorama, what I heard. And that was that 3rd graders, okay, but here's my question, simple. Are they answering questions? No, let me rephrase it. 3rd grade panorama screener, is it grade level
Specific?
yes.
So
So in other words, a 3rd grader is not getting the same thing as a 6th grader or an 8th grader.
Correct. So the grade bands are K to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 12.
Okay, so it's grade level appropriate.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
Okay.
Okay, and if there's,
You're next. Yeah.
you got another question?
I got a couple.
Okay.
I'll
Ms.
just
Lindsay?
make a general request in terms of time, that when we come next week, just for the presenters to explain the difference or compatibility of Orton Gillingham and letters. So if we can just get that fleshed out for next week. Well, I just want to be in interest in time. So
Well, next week's a board meeting, so
it's up to you guys.
no, it's up to you.
It'll turn my 2 into 3, so if y'all
think
are
they-
fine with it.
Yeah, we think it's
Beautiful.
important too, so they can explain it briefly.
Thank
And if
you.
there's questions, we'll follow up then.
Okay.
Hi, thank you so much for the question. So the Orton Gillingham that's on the agenda tonight is an extension of the work we're doing with the instructional support teachers. This will go to the instructional coaches, so that they're equipped to coach all teachers, right? Letters training is a 2-year intensive program for classroom teachers to participate in. Those teachers must be utilizing a core phonics curriculum in order to practice that work that they're learning. So they do learning, they practice it on their phonics curriculum, they come back and do more learning, and it's a 2-year process to get certified in letters. So they complement each other, right? This is a cohort for 40 teachers. We have more than 40 teachers, so we want to provide additional avenues of support.
So they're compatible.
They're
not
completely
duplicative.
compatible.
So is it duplicative? in
It is
any way?
not.
Beautiful.
It is not.
And then, thank you. The other 2 questions I have relates to Hero and regarding Juarez. Since I see we have our principal here, I want to be able to have our principals at the podium to talk about what they're excited about.
Good evening, Board President, Assistant President. Sorry.
Look,
Good evening, everyone.
I'm taking on the characteristics of board president. You got 5 minutes. No.
Question. I'm ready.
So I'm getting mixed feedback regarding Hero. I'm hearing a lot of students not really knowing what the program is for. I'm hearing that some of the engagement aspects of it are not truly engaging for the students. So I just have concerns of continuing something that there's no student buy-in for.
Sure. I understand. Well, I appreciate your question, and I do appreciate the fact that you brought that up as well. With me today, I do want to go ahead and let you know that we do have some representatives from the schools with us, and also,
I know, right?
and also, I do want to thank them publicly for staying the course for that. But we do have a very strategic plan on how to make sure that students, families, staff, and administrators understand what is Hero, what is the purpose of Hero, and how they could tap into Hero to highlight the good and what needs to reinforce the positive behaviors we're looking for. So we do have a strategic plan behind that. I'm gonna allow if you want, them to speak on how Hero has been a good thing, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Thank you, board, for having me today. From my experience, I just want to say this is my experience. Hero, and people have different stories and different interpretations of it. Hero is an incentive-based system. I want to make sure that we understand this. It has been combined with Tardies, and we use it for Tardies, but at its core, it is for incentive-based, PBIS. So it has never, in my experience of being here, has run at full capacity. It has always been unorganized, changing, it's been a lot of changes. So this year has been one of the first years I've seen the PBIS, the buy-in from students actually start to happen. And I firmly believe the buy-in with students will get the buy-in from teachers. If the kids want it, they'll drive, they'll be persistent, they'll kind of drive the teachers to participate as well. So I think it's a great thing. PBIS-wise, I don't want to talk about the tardy side because it's two different discussions, but PBIS-wise, it's a really good system that I would say. So.
If I could just clarify, I just want to make sure I reinforce this, that the Hero system will not be utilized to address tardiness. Tardiness and Hero is going to be completely separated because we want to make sure we highlight and we promote and we encourage the positive behaviors that we're seeing in the schools. These points, we want to make sure we give the schools the game plan on how they could implement and reinforce all these good things. So with that, we have been in collaboration with the MTSS department, and we even brought we brought Miss Campos to show, hey, this could happen as well in a middle school setting. So I'm gonna allow Ms. Campos just to share a little bit of what it could look like when you use Hero in a very innovative way. So she's gonna speak on just how they have something really special going on at Abbott.
Oh, wow, she's coming to the podium.
I am.
I love your energy. Get it.
Good evening, and thank you so much. So we use Hero at Abbott a little bit differently, right? It is purely incentive-based, where students are gaining points for being a RAM Scholar. And when you're a RAM Scholar, each student going into every classroom gets up to 5 points for being respectful, accountable, mindful, and safe, and being a scholar. They do this coming in, being in class on time, and doing that. Now, what's great with what we have done with Hero is as students accumulate the points, they also are able to buy it using our Ramazon store. You like it, right? Word play on words, right? It's our Rams Amazon store. It is an online store where students are going in saying, these are the points that I have, here's what I want to purchase. We have now created that into a Ramazon club where we have students actually filling the orders and delivering items every Friday.
Oh my
So
God.
it is beyond exciting. We have filled over last year alone over, I think it was 10,000 deliveries of stuff that students have purchased. So it has been an amazing opportunity, and we would love for it to continue because our students are really buying into it. And if we continue that amongst all of our middle schools, high schools, and beyond, it's changing a perspective, and that's what we're looking for.
I got
And
follow-up
so-
questions for you because
Okay.
that was
Absolutely,
fire.
yes, ma'am.
Sorry, Ms.
Okay,
Hannah.
right, we're gonna go.
So
further.
you said that the students are involved, right, with the
Absolutely.
Ramazan store. So what are you doing to get student input on what they want to see in that Ramazan store?
So it's our student council actually surveys the students regularly.
Okay.
And it's interesting. So our student council has been very active, where we've changed our whole testing schedule because of what they've done. We've added different items in our Ramazan store because of their surveys. So they're constantly getting feedback from the students on what they want to see in the store, and we're purchasing what is needed.
Nice.
Yeah.
Follow-ups to that then. How has staff buy-in been, and how is family communication going?
So staff buy-in right now is excellent because we are very strategic in the way we're rolling it out.
Okay.
So it's all about the matter of how we are presenting it to the staff, how we're rolling it out with our staff. And it is a process that happens over time. It doesn't happen overnight, right? And we have to understand that it doesn't happen overnight because it is a shift in mindset. So, and because it is a shift in mindset, you start off with it little bit, and little by little, then you see it working, and then more buy-in and more buy-in. So within the 2-year process that we've really been pushing Amazon, we've seen it go from 50% to like 80, 90, 95%. So, and it's there where everyone is working towards it, and teachers will go, oh my gosh, I forgot, because the kids are reminding them. Did I earn my Rams points? Right, so because kids are reminding them, they're like, yes, I got it, I marked it down, and kids are monitoring it on their phones. So parents are coming in, calling in and saying, oh, they got this on the Ramazan store. But so there's that true connection of what's going on because students are truly excited about it.
And I could, oh,
Good.
go ahead.
Just a real quick question, because you're saying that there's an online platform.
Yes.
And again, thank you, Ms. Campos, because I always love the stuff that you bring. But if there's an online, are you using Heroes? Has that, or are you doing like a different kind of, like, did you do another app that does that?
Hero has the points where we are adding and deducting the points in Hero. But the actual store is something different. It's a different platform. It's a Google site that we have created that's connected to our website. Students go into it, they have it on their phones. So that's a little bit different, but everything is tied to the Hero where it's automatically deducted out. Yeah, we have amazing spreadsheets. I couldn't even begin to explain our spreadsheets. Okay?
Well, no, Mrs. Campos, don't you go anywhere.
Yes, ma'am.
That's exciting.
It
It
is.
sounds exciting. So exciting that it doesn't just need to be at Abbott.
Correct, and I
It
think that's where the
needs to
rollout
be-
is.
It needs to be, kind of district-wide.
Absolutely.
And that would be something very positive for our community to know about. And that we are addressing issues of behavior as well as academics. And sometimes we don't do ourselves favor by we keep our good things all closed up. And it's like shh, don't tell nobody, but it's something good and it needs to be put out there so that people can kind of like start shifting their perspective.
Absolutely.
But if we keep good stuff to ourselves, okay, then we gonna keep getting that warped perspective.
Absolutely.
So that's something that needs to come out. Thank you. And not only just in our district newsletter or media, we need to put that out in the public that this stuff is happening.
Where's
Yeah.
Steve?
So anyway.
Yeah, where is he tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I just, thank you for the work for the team, and that has been something that we've been talking about, is the need to rebrand Hero, because there was a lot of confusion that it was solely about tardies, and so that's something that the team, Oscar working with MTSS, teaching and learning, and the entire ASAP team really, to talk about how we're going to rebrand this. And I think Oscar's done a really nice job of coming up with an implementation plan so that it can be inclusive of parents and community members as well. And the idea of sharing that, and that's where our middle school redesign and the work that the principals are doing and coming together and meeting regularly. There was discussion about the student voice and choice, and the student council, and the student councils meet together, and that again is an aspect of, we're seeing some success with the middle school redesign, and the middle school team really working at it, and PBIS and the Hero piece is a component of that we want to see across. The elementary does a really great job with PBIS, and where we see it kind of, just where we need a little improvement is in middle and in high school. Yeah. And so, and we need to rebrand. And again, I have to give kudos to Oscar for really working on the implementation plan and being very thoughtful about being inclusive of parents and students and community.
Well, I know we used to have the start on time, thing for our students and stuff, and I'm hoping that we still have aspects of the start on time, and we are combining, because start on time worked, okay, in our schools. And if we can use, we don't want to throw things away that worked, but if we got something that's good, then we just include it.
Yes.
But anyway, you have one more question?
I got one more.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Dupree, so I think I want to connect with you to hear more about this implementation plan, because I think I'm really keen on making sure that we don't fumble things, and not that I'm saying that your implementation is going to fumble. I'm just curious to see what it looks like, because I'm so excited about it. I would be remiss if I didn't make the comment that there was, at the high school level, the students had to advocate and advocate and advocate over and over to their teachers to award them their earned points. But I'm going to trust that when I speak with you, or if you want to make a comment now, that's going to be part of the implementation plan, to make sure that students aren't having to be the main driver to get the rewards that they have earned.
Yes. I want to be honest with you. I want to make sure that we understand this is going to be increment steps towards the right direction. That's my goal. And part of my goal is also to try to over communicate with everyone. And that would include social media presence, that would include coming up here regularly, that would include a number of things, not just with me, but in collaboration with many others. Like, there's a lot of people here that have a lot of great things to say and bring to the table. It's just not me. But rest assured that these small incremental steps will be going towards the right direction, and in collaboration, not just with the team, but also with administrators and the area soups, we're going to make sure we try to do that correctly this year.
I like it.
Does that make sense?
Thank you for the hard work that you put in to try to rebrand
the team has been working on it.
And hopefully we are making manuals and so forth with all of this stuff.
Yeah, SOPs.
Manual in case.
I mean, the student
Look,
handbook
it's
is.
not, well,
But for the staff to administer the
I'm
Hero.
not even talking about the student handbook. I'm talking about the district.
Yeah.
The
And
district manuals on these things that that are taking place and happening. So in case Oscar Depew is not here, the next person can go and pick that manual up and see what was going on.
Yeah.
Same thing with Dr. Sario. If he's not here, the manual, and we can go back instead of, we have to stop reinventing the wheel and be consistent and ongoing, so that we could see progress and success.
Yes.
And so
We're working towards sustainability so that you're right. If one person steps out, we're not changing everything. Absolutely right.
And Mr. McBride had a question?
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand the Hero System program. Is that the program that's used, if I'm late for class, I got to get in line and get it passed? Is that the same Hero System class we
That's
talking
the
about?
unfortunate perspective of the program. That is correct.
That's it?
That is
Well,
correct.
you know,
but that is not intended for that.
Huh?
It was not intended for that.
Yeah, but I'm asking, is that the Hero System we talking about?
So
No. Yeah.
So that's how it was being used. It was being used to give out tardies. And that was not, and just like Oscar said, that was not the intended purpose. And that's part of the reason why we have to have a solid implementation plan and rebranding plan and really market this. And I'm glad that Oscar was very forthright in saying that this is going to be incremental. We're not going to change it all in one day, because what Ms. Campos, and I think a question that Ms. Lensing or Ms. Fabian asked about buy-in, that doesn't come automatically. So we see success and we see variations in what's happening. We want some consistency. Not every school is going to have a Ramazan. Maybe they're going to have some other version of that and personalize it, but it's going to happen over time. Unfortunately, the HERO, which is a PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention System, was really it was misused. I have another term I want to use, but I won't use it here. And really used simply to give out tardies, and it was never intended to do that. And so we've been talking about this for over a year. Like, we need to do a rebranding because there's this association is a negative one, right? And so it's not it's more supposed to be about reinforcing positive behavior. It's incentive based, as it's been mentioned here. So. Not tardies.
Yeah, well, I asked the question because I want to make sure I understood the Hero System program. I'm saying that because I went over to the high school myself just to observe, to see the Hero System program. And what I seen, it was a joke. And I'm saying, and the students used it to their benefit, not from a positive, but for a negative aspect.
Right.
So I'm glad to see that you're getting ready to, I used the word revamp, change some things about it. And I like the idea that it's a good program. I mean, what middle school?
Abbott.
I mean, you came up and gave a perfect example of what that program, how it could be used. And the kids were, that you were targeting for tardiness was a plus instead of a minus. So that's why I asked, because I did go over there and look at it. So I'm glad that you revamped it.
Me too. I looked at it a lot.
Right,
yeah, because you're absolutely right.
Just to give you an example,
Yeah.
when I was there as a student, I knew the program was there, so I know I ain't got to go to class. So what I would do is get in line, and I actually, if Teresa was in front of me, I was getting back behind her, and I was looking at my clock, looking at the same time, waiting on the bell to ring.
Yeah.
So that's what I seen.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and Ms. Hernandez?
Hello, does it work? Yeah. So I just wanted to praise Abbott because my daughter just graduated from there and they are doing amazing things, positive things. And I personally, as a parent, I know that the district policy is to just allow all the schools to do what they want. But I would like to see their program especially rolled out upwards, up to the high schools, because my son has all these hero points. The last time we checked was like in February. He had enough to get like 2 sweaters and still had money or whatever left over, but he never ever turned them in at the end of the year or anything. And the reason being was because they only came to the cafeteria every so often. So I would like to see the high school implement the Google Doc method if possible, because especially with the kids that are traveling and things, they're not in the lunchroom for a very long time, and the hero cart or whatever is not there all the time, hardly ever anyways. So there needs to be consistency with the actual turning in of the funds or whatever, that type of thing. So I think the Google Doc method, my personal opinion, at least then they can order it online and then maybe just pick it up, or have some the cart there to pick it up. But he didn't even know you know, he wasn't keeping track because he didn't care. Like, and that's even more unfortunate. You know, I'm like, go get yourself some sweaters, you know, get a hoodie. And he's like, they're never there when I'm there. And yeah, so I think consistency is maybe what we need to strive for rather than, you know, I mean, allowing the principals to do their own thing is great. But consistency, when we find something going well, let's do it across the board. You know what I mean? And I think that's where administration needs to kind of nudge the schools to work together to do those positive things, because Abbott is really on top of their game. So thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Hernandez, for that, because it just provoked a question. What happens if your Abbott students end up at the end of their 8th grade year with those points? And so are all of those earned points, they just go by the wayside? Or like as Ms. Hernandez is speaking, is there any way that we could like have the students keep their points and they just roll over into the high school? Now, whatever implementation that you all do at the high school, those points will not be lost because they're still earned. You know,
Yeah,
and
we
so,
can discuss
I mean,
that.
I'm
I
not
love that.
asking for an answer tonight, but I'm just saying that's something for you guys to maybe think about,
I
Superintendent.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If there
Thank you,
are-
guys.
Does anybody have any other questions, comments regarding the information items? Again, the attachments are there. And we do have a request from Board Member Gonzalez for the presentation on the Jocelyn Center.
So I had one more.
You have one more?
Yeah, because I said
Okay,
Hero
I'm sorry.
and Senor Campos, I don't know why you sat down. Can you just expand on your item this evening and why you're so excited about it?
Sure. Good evening. Good evening, board members, superintendent, and members of the public. Yes, so tonight we're here because Juarez Middle School is requesting for the board to potentially approve the partnership between Juarez and ULLC. And the main reason why we're partnering with ULLC is because based on our ESSA rating, we are a comprehensive school. And so as part of that, we have been meeting regularly on a monthly basis with the state representative. And so what Juarez has done is that the Juarez leadership team has met consistently with the state representative, and we have undergone through an intense data analysis of different data points from academic to also 5 essentials to a variety of multiple data points in order to conduct a root cause analysis and see what are some of the things that we are going to be working on as we move forward. Because of our rating, because of where our students are academically, because of our chronic absenteeism, because if you look at ESSA, the different components that it measures is not only academics, but also chronic absenteeism, also the culture and climate of the school. So after doing all that for the past year, we are on a 4-year plan, and this is basically year 1, which is just the planning phase of the entire 4-year plan. We're looking to implement this plan. So they're granting us a minimum of $100,000, and that's just a minimum. It could be a little bit more. As a matter of fact, I think the grant will open this Thursday, and so we will know how much exactly we have, but we basically have approximately $100,000 grant dollars. And so what we decided to do based on one of the caveats of having this is basically to go into ISB and there's a lot of learning partners that we can partner up. And based on our root cause analysis and what our problem statement was, which was basically we want to make sure that we improve on the amount of instructional time that our teachers are using in the classroom from bell to bell. We looked at different learning partners that were available. We had the opportunity to meet with probably 3 of them. And based on our leadership team decision, we decided to partner up with ULLC. ULLC, for some of you who have been in the district for a while, you will probably remember ULLC was part of the district partnership back in 2005 to 2011-ish, around that. Harvey Perkins, great guy. Him and his team came in, they visited us, and he visited our school. And so we're on call almost every week. And so, as a matter of fact, we're meeting tomorrow because I told them that, you know what, I'm coming today to see what the board is going to talk about, and you know, just to present what they're going to be working with us. And so, as part of our school improvement plan, we're focusing more on 3 different things, which is basically ELA proficiency, math proficiency, and chronic absenteeism. And even though chronic absenteeism is, you know, and if you just look at the word, you may think it's about attendance, right? But it's more about how can we be proactive? How can we do more family engagement? How can we do more PBIS incentives that we just talked about, right? How can we use HERO? How can we involve more families? And more importantly, how can we improve in our whole supportive climate at the school level? And so, so those are the things that they're going to be working on. I've also met with teaching and learning. Because there's certain things, and the good thing about this, you know, being in this situation as a comprehensive school is that you look at data deeply, and then you also do a thorough analysis of what supports the district has for us in our school improvement plan. I've met with Jen and her team. And so based on this literacy approach, right, we need to make sure that there's literacy across all contents at the middle school level, and sometimes at the high school level. Sometimes our mindset is more about, you know, oh, I'm a language arts teacher, so I'm just worried about language arts. I'm a math teacher, I just worry about math, right? I'm an arts teacher, so I don't need to worry about anything, right? So the key thing that I've been pushing on at our school this past school year, which our preliminary data has seen a 4% increase in IR for ELA, at least this year, and we're looking to shoot for more. And basically, it's just pushing for literacy across all contents.
Right.
And so our staff has really bought into it. I can tell them, don't trust me, you got to trust the process. And I think the process that we're doing and the process that of involving all the staff members is really important. So that's it in a nutshell. I could go on and on because we sat down and we reviewed a bunch of things, but you know, I'm looking forward for the upcoming school year and the partnership that we will have with ULLC.
It sounds like a really great opportunity for the supports that your school needs, and it sounds like the data was really reviewed, analyzed, and considered to drive the decisions. And from what I'm seeing between the 79,000 and you saying the grant is tentatively 100K,
Yes.
this is going to be completely funded through ISB, is what it's currently sounding like.
Yes, it is. It will be 100% granted, and the only reason why we reach at 79,000 is because what ISB recommends is that we use 80% to 90% of our grant, and then leave the other, you know, amount, whether it's 20,000, 25,000, in order to pay for professional development. Because even in July, once this is approved in July, we already have plans of bringing in our staff and paying our staff to do more of the work that we need to be working on.
I think this is excellent. Congrats.
Great.
Okay, wonderful. So are you telling me that Mr. Perkins is going to be back here in our
Yes.
district?
Yes.
Is Miss Dawn coming too?
Don?
Yeah.
Yes, he was, when he met with me, he said that he, actually, Mr. Taylor used to be principal at Jack Benny. So
Right.
he was assisting me as, subbing as assistant principal.
Right.
And on the day that they came, Sam was there. And so they were like, man, you know, he worked with Sam hand in hand.
Right.
So all of them are going to be here. Yeah.
Dawn, look, you guys, y'all got the goose that laid the golden egg. Now, if y'all let them go, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, our
Yes.
staff
I
really
am
liked
very,
it when we met
very
with the partners, and so we selected them. And they're a little bit, they're not necessarily they're from Virginia, but they're very good. They're very good. They laid out the plan. They're very hands-on, and that's the one thing that we like is that they're going to be with us as administrators, promoting our instructional leadership team in general, including myself.
And Miss Dawn used to live directly across the street from me.
Oh, wow.
So unless they've moved, okay, but she lived right directly across the street from me.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, and
Compost, yeah.
now
All
we
right.
can go to our last item, the Jocelyn Center.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so good evening, Board, Superintendent, Community. I am requesting that the approval from the board that we...
Stephanie, can you
sorry.
speak into the mic so?
I'm requesting that there's a contract attached to the slide deck, but that Jocelyn Center, that we use Jocelyn Center to hire 6 clinicians to support our elementary schools for the following school year. It is a 1-year contract. They are based out of Waukegan, and they currently have a summer camp at Whittier this year. So that one's going really well. So the contract is attached. It is a quote that is for $458,000, but it's truly to support the needs of our elementary school students.
So will this be all of the elementary schools or just one?
Multiple. So we're looking, Jocelyn will hire 6 clinicians, and we will spread them out among the 15 elementary schools.
Okay.
Because there are certain elementary schools that currently have a SEL counselor. So to give a school a social worker, an SEL counselor, and a clinician from Jocelyn Center full-time may be too much. So we'll have to look at the data and kind of see. What I did this year with Asia Human Services is that if a building was truly struggling, I tried to give them a counselor for 1 day. So we could support those students while they would support another building on a different day. So really kind of looking at the resources and the students that are at each building and really kind of spreading them out across multiple buildings.
Okay, because we got 15 buildings, and we have children in 15 buildings that needs the support, trauma help, emotional, social things that you and I would never even have to deal with, and we need to address it long as we are spending almost $500,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And this is just for 1 year.
Correct.
And I really am expecting results. I really want to see results. Okay,
Yes.
not just spending this money just to spend it.
Correct.
Yeah.
I-
Okay. Any other questions,
Yeah.
Ms. Gonzalez?
I'm all for this. Some of my friends like going to Jocelyn for therapy. I'm glad that they're here in Waukegan. My ask, again, if it could be supplemental information, is to have a little bit of data or just feedback about how the summer camp has been going.
Yes.
Just so that we know that, what's currently happening and how effective it was at Whittier. And again, and it might be a little too early, I don't know, but by the next board meeting to know where they're going to be placed, those 6 clinicians. Because my worry is that, Board President Ewing always says it's like a both and, right? We have internal staff that help our students, and then we have outside partners that help us do similar work if we can use them. But the process is not always communicated, or it's kind of hard to kind of tap into. So when it gets rolled out and they're here in our facilities, if that could be communicated, or like the implementation plan could be
course.
shared with us just as reference.
Yes.
To know, okay, this is how we're welcoming these people into the schools, so we don't run into the issue of like bam and wow, and
Correct.
Like the referral process is easier, right?
Correct.
So Tuesday may be too soon to,
Yes.
but I can see it.
At
I
some
knew you.
point,
I
at
also
some
knew
point.
you needed to do the
Yes.
assessment, but
Yes.
we will come back to the
Right.
board with that for information at a later board meeting.
Okay.
And
Okay.
what?
So,
And I want to make sure that the clinicians are a good fit for the school. And they attend those MTSST meetings, and they understand and look at the data, and they fit with the building. So what, as the years goes, just like last year, I moved clinicians as fit with the building. Where a building just, I don't need this person 5 days, okay, but I have another building that really needs someone 1 day, so can you spare 1 day? We do have to look at what resources are available and making sure that we provide the right resources to the right buildings. So I completely understand.
Thank you. You have a question?
I did. I was just curious what that collaboration might look like within the schools when we're introducing the partnership.
So usually they come with, I meet with the principal and the clinician. So we kind of go together. We kind of set those expectations of what days are they going to be here, kind of logistical things. And when is your MTSS meeting? Do you have early releases, or are you a late start school? Where are you in the MTSS team kind of process? How do you guys refer kids? Who sees, does the social worker see this student? Does your counselor, kind of where are you? So that they are part of that conversation. So that if a student does need to be referred to the Jocelyn Center, there's a paper trail of that teacher has tried this, we've tried this, we need something more. The student needs something more, and or there has been some significant trauma in the student's life or family that has to be addressed immediately.
Okay. And then how are the conversations with the families going to look? Because I am all for it. I do think our students need these services. I know there are some populations out there that are adverse to mental health supports. So what's the communication going to look like with the families when these individuals enter our schools to do the great work that they're going to be doing?
So I think what we have done this year is that the principal usually or that team, or whoever has a connection to that family, makes that phone call first to the family. So it's not this random person, stranger, calling you, hey, I want to see your student for 30 minutes because of A, B, and C. That doesn't work. So it's really kind of whoever has that connection, but the parent should always be involved in the first place. So if there is something going on, I would, I know that hope is not a strategy, but I would think that if a teacher sees that something has happened at home, or if the parent involves the teacher tells the student, listen, I have this, or the family, I have this resource that we can provide you. But again, it's just communication out to the buildings of like, these are the things that we have that we can provide you.
So then could it be, and you said this is up to the principals, but I would anticipate this being part of like the welcome night for the principals to start saying, these are all the things we have in the school, these are the different resources, and there will be some information for families proactively, so that even if the student's not displaying a need, the family can communicate with a trusted individual within the school building.
Correct.
To say, hey, let's get some support in place.
Yes.
And then my only other concern revolves around PII, so that's personal identifiable information. So is Jocelyn Center going to be storing these records within their facility, or is it solely remaining within the school district?
So let me double check, because I know that there is if they are seeing students, if there's a caveat, it says somewhere in the quote, I think that if they're seeing families, that they kind of keep it in their database if they're going to see them outside of the school day.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So if they're in the school day, all those students are discussed at that MTSS team meeting, but I do think that if the clinician is starting to see the student and or family outside of the school day.
Okay.
So that brings me to another question. I do see that they will be available outside of the school day, and I just want to ensure that would be at no cost to our families then, because that's part of this agreement, so that if we're referring families out, they're not incurring a cost, because I know that's sometimes what prohibits families from getting the help they need.
So they won't incur a cost. The first choice is see the students in the school day. If there is an intensive, then they would have to complete like an intake as if they were going to go see them on a more permanent basis. But I think that is covered through insurance and or Medicaid, but I will double check. Outside of the school day.
I would double check.
Yes, outside of the school day. Yes.
Yeah, I got it back.
Yes,
there.
yes.
Sorry,
You ready?
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, but
Oh, no.
my,
Oh, okay.
my question is that, but if they don't have insurance or Medicaid, do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
If we're handing
Yes.
families off to
Correct.
the support, that we
Correct.
also have some kind of plan for those that cannot afford.
Correct.
Yeah, and 9 times out of 10, I'm just going out on a limb.
Yes.
9 times out of 10, they probably already have that Medicaid and stuff, because you know I know we're Provision 2 school, but I also know that many parents and families are eligible for that.
I'm just thinking of especially like our newcomers and stuff, and some of those.
A lot of people don't have insurance.
Yeah, our
unfortunately.
immigrants who don't qualify for the Medicaid
Right.
and don't have insurance through their work. So I just want to make sure that those are the especially vulnerable populations
Mhm.
that would need
Right.
that intensive trauma
Correct.
support, or if they're asylum seekers and refugees, that we are helping families to understand that they do qualify for certain services such as Medicaid.
Yes.
Okay.
Just a quick
Ms.
question.
Hernandez- oh,
Oh,
sorry.
will Jocelyn possibly be at our wraparound center too? Will they be one of the agencies possibly there? I don't know if you can answer that.
I was like, we haven't
We
talked
won't
about
be
that
able to
yet.
answer that yet because we haven't done the needs assessment. And
Okay.
for the grant,
Ms.
we need to
Dodson
do
left
the
too.
needs assessment.
I know, I was looking for her.
Right. Okay, let me go back to the audience. Ms. Hernandez?
Is
Nope,
the light
can't
on?
hear
Is it
you.
green?
Okay. So as a parent and a psychologist, I want to know, you're saying that they're licensed clinicians, but I would like to see licensed professional counselors. So will someone be evaluating them to ensure that we're getting licensed professional counselors as opposed to social workers or just people that have been lay trained, through the Johnson or the Jocelyn training, internal training that they offer?
So per the contract, they have to have a master's degree.
Okay, but not a licensed professional counselor?
It. No.
Okay, so
Master's level or higher.
so is there a way that we can ensure that we get licensed professional counselors, not just people with master's degrees and whatever, or
I think the strategy has been to try to supplement what we currently have, because having people with the PEL. So when Stephanie was talking about they have masters in social work, but they don't have the PEL, right? And so you're speaking about people who have the PEL, which is the professional educator license. Yeah, thank you. So we're working on that end to provide that as well, but this has been a supplement just because we do have a shortage. Not only does Waukegan have a shortage, but the country has a shortage of mental health professionals. So this is a way to partner with an organization like AAHS. It's a very similar organization to AAHS, so that we can get the supports that we need for our students that are dealing with trauma. The goal is to have as many licensed folks on staff as possible, so then we don't have to supplement. Given the fact that the last 4 years have been really difficult, it's really important that we have these additional resources.
Okay, so I'm not actually talking about the PEL, I'm actually talking about professional counselors. So that would be done through IDPFR. It's outside of the educational community itself. It's through the counseling and the actual professional licensing of the state of Illinois. So if someone could just look into that, maybe I can send you an email so
Sure.
that way you would understand how to evaluate them. And then if we're able to select actual professional counselors, it would be beneficial. And then the other...
Can I just speak to the evaluation piece?
Sure.
Because I think that's important. So they are evaluated by the staff at Jocelyn Center, much like AHS was evaluated there. And then when Stephanie was talking about the collaboration between the principal and the school and making sure the fit is right, there's ongoing communication to make sure that that's working out well. And if it's not, then we talk about moving that person, or sometimes and it hasn't happened, but if they have to be removed, then they're removed. But they do a very thorough, from what I've heard, I'm not as familiar with Jocelyn, but from what I've heard, they and what I've read about them, they do a very thorough job of vetting their staff members.
Okay, so as a parent, my issue is we don't have any, from what I understand, professional counselors within any of our schools currently. We don't have any professional counselors from our outside BAM-WOWs either. And so what I'm advocating for is that we ensure that these are professional counselors that are trained in psychology, not just in all these other subjects. Because psychology, even as a psychology major myself, I can't just come in and counsel someone. That's illegal, technically. I can't just say, oh, I'm a counselor because I have a psychology degree. That's not how it actually works in the real world. So I would like to see us actually strive to make the real world happen here in Waukegan.
Can you send me an email with that?
Yeah, if you can give me your email so that way I have it.
Yes.
And then my other thing was that with the wraparound center, we had already discussed a company out in Grays Lake or something like that. And so I was just wondering, why are we trying with the Jocelyn Center now, and then we really have no idea about that?
So I just want to be very clear, and I don't know, maybe it wasn't clear in that in the presentation or not, but we're transitioning from AHS, Asian Human Services, which was providing the supplemental social work and counseling services for us, to Jocelyn. So we're transitioning. We had 6 before. We're going to have 6 with Jocelyn. In terms of the wraparound center, I'm going to reiterate what the superintendent said. Right. There hasn't been any discussions regarding that yet because we don't have the needs assessment. So I can't speak to the Grays Lake piece. I'm not familiar with that. But right now we're just speaking to how we're supplementing the mental health supports and the SEL supports. It's part of our strategy along with BAM and WOW to provide supplemental supports to our students in the schools and families when applicable.
Ms. Hernandez, I think you were referring to a comment made about how they would work with outside agencies, and one was in Grays Lake. So yeah, so the partnership of who will be located in the wraparound center, that has not happened as of yet, right? Because there'll be an RFP process for that once the needs assessment is done. So we don't even know what the need, so we can't start looking for organizations to work with. However, though, there will be like some stapled organizations, like if a family's in need of food. I think that was where they were talking about the food bank. If I may be wrong, but they would pair them with outside agencies.
Okay. Are there any other questions regarding the Jocelyn Center?
Did we have 6 clinicians as well with Asian,
That's what I thought.
We
It was
did.
the same, so we're
We
basically
did.
replacing those 6 with these.
And then we're just transitioning, yeah. And I think it'll be easier because they're local,
Right.
and so that was one of the asks from the board, was that we look to hire locally,
Right.
and now that we have the ability to do so, previously we did not. We exhausted a lengthy list of different organizations, but now we can, and that Jocelyn's here, so we're really excited about this new partnership.
Good. Thank you.
Sorry, final question. And because Ms. Polk's in here, I feel I need to ask it. So would this qualify under ESSER funding since it's for student services?
Correct. Yes, that's where we had placed it before. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So it'll
You got one more
just be
question?
replaced. Sorry.
It really is just a transition.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I mean,
So that we're
obviously.
not paying double and then
No,
it's
no,
like
no,
at some
no, no,
point-
no.
Yeah.
The contract ends with AHS June 30, and then this one will start. And we wanted to make sure that there wasn't any kind of overlap.
Yes.
But we also wanted to make sure that during the summer, if our students and families needed support, that AHS was there.
Yeah.
And so, and Jocelyn and AHS have been talking to each other, and so this is a true transition about what's been going on, what's the history, and so yeah, it is you know, it's apples for apples, so to speak.
Okay.
Obviously, there are certain differences between the organizations, right? But the aspect of AHS that we were tapping into with the counseling and social work services is what we're tapping into with Jocelyn as well.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Of course.
All
For
right.
staying
If
this
no
long.
other, if there are no other questions, comments, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion
Second.
to adjourn.
Okay, we got a motion, Ms. Gonzalez, and second by Mr. Riddle. I wanna thank everyone for coming, thank everyone for online, all the questions, and can I have a voice vote, please?
Yay.
All in favor?
Yes.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I thought we had a roll call.
Go ahead, roll call, we can do roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes, motion carried, and we are now adjourned.